Hi, my name is Mark Hundley, and this is Live at 5 on a Wednesday. It's another hump day. My goodness, how quickly those tend to stack up. Coming to you again from Plano. We're back home for a little while. Gonna be maybe headed out of town next week for vacation, so I may or may not do a Live at 5 next week. I haven't really decided that, but I appreciate you being here. Appreciate you sharing some of this time with me today. And I want to talk with you today about people who make a difference. Um, I don't know about you, but in my life, I've had lots of people who have stepped in at various times in my life to add something to who I am. They've spent time with me. They've noticed things about who I am, and they've made a difference in my life. Many All of us, I think, have experienced some sort of frustration or challenges at least somewhere, at some point in our life. And I think back on my life growing up, and there were many things. I was born in 1953, so I'm an old dude. And there were some things that took place in my life while I was growing up that at the time were much more impactful, much more socially negative, viewed in a socially negative way than perhaps they are now. So the impact on a child's life could have been very a bunch more impactful, I guess, was what I'm trying to say. And I think I had some of those things, but many times we have to look at ourselves and wonder, what is it that's happened? Who is it in my life that's helped me be who I am today? Who has invested in me the kinds of things that I needed at the time I needed them to help me be who I am today? And I feel pretty good about who I am today, not because of that I wear a Superman cape or have all this wonderful stuff about myself, but I feel really good about who I am today because of the investments that others have made in me and how those investments have paid off. These are people who have made a difference. I was thinking not long ago that my earliest memory of the person outside of family who made a real difference in my life was a black man when I was 3, 4, 5 years old. He lived in my hometown of Memphis, Texas, the place we just came from last week. And his job was to sweep the floors at the combination beauty shop barbershop in Memphis, Texas. It was called Greenhaw's Barbershop. And he was there and would sweep the floors. And I think you may know that I'm a PK, a preacher's kid. I grew up in the church from the time I was able to be carried. So it was a church all the time because my dad was an evangelist. And when I would go to Memphis to visit my grandmother and my grandparents, the very first place I wanted to go, and I would ask purposely to go to the barbershop / beauty shop, because I wanted to see my friend. I wanted to see that big, tall, muscular black man who loved me. And his name was Popeye. I don't know what his real name was, but that's what everybody called him. I will always remember in the back of my mind and deep in my heart, every time I would run in, and I would literally run into that store, that facility, and whatever he was doing, he would turn around and had a huge smile on his face, and he had a nickname for me. His nickname for me was Little Preacher. Okay, I thought that was cool. But I wanted to go and see him. And every time I entered that place, big smile on his face, and he said, "There's my little preacher." I thought that was the greatest thing in the whole world because he saw me for me. He was excited to see me. He always welcomed me. He always asked me questions, always listened to my stories. And I know as a little boy, I probably had tons of stories, but he always stopped what he was doing, took the time to listen to me. And I remember when I was older getting a baseball card of Willie Mays, the famous San Francisco Giants player. And I was struck by how much, at least in my brain, how much Popeye looked like Willie Mays. And I was just fascinated by that. In fact, I think I even took him one of my extra Willie Mays cards one time and gave him to him. But he made such an impact. He made such a difference in my life that he made me began to feel really good about myself, that people liked to see me, that they wanted to see me. And I just thought that was fascinating. I loved it. There are other people that I could point to, people outside of my family, at very crucial points in my life. There was a coach when I was in the 6th grade, Coach Glasscock, who took me under his wing and spent time with me, asking me questions, encouraging me in my pursuits of running track, and made me feel that I was significant. There was another coach who, for 4 years in Fort Smith, Arkansas, Coach Bill Malone, he was just one of those guys that didn't have to do for me what he did, but because he saw something in me, spent extra time talking, taking me places in the time, that was back in the time when you could do those kinds of things, bringing me to be a part of his family, being with his sons. It was one of those things that I will always look back and remember how insignificant it was. In fact, I remember that when I graduated high school, I wrote a long letter to him, thanking him for everything that he had done for me, for all the time that he spent investing in me. And he showed me about 3 years after that letter that he carried that letter with him in his back pocket everywhere he went. It was kind of one of those amazing things. At a time when I was going through the divorce of my parents when I was a sophomore in high school, I remember my world history teacher, Ms. Wilson, who later became a counselor at Southside High School there in Fort Smith. And she would always have time. She would make time for me to listen to what was going on. These are the people who made a difference in my life, outside of family and those who had to, so to speak. And I will always remember them. I will always remember them by name. I will always remember them for the investments, specific investments they made into my life, because it made a huge difference. I have a feeling that every single one of you have at least one person in your life who didn't have to spend time with you, who didn't have to ask you questions, who didn't have to give you a hug or a ride to or from work or to or from home, who spent time with you talking about your future. I'm sure every single one of you has at least one of those people in your life. And as I think about people who make a difference, I've kind of come to terms with that there are about 6, and you can create your own list, and I hope that you will. There are about 6 hallmarks that I call hallmarks of people who make a difference. And let me share those 6 hallmarks with you. And then I'm going to challenge you to do something. The very first one, people who make a difference are genuine. They are real people. If you'll think back to what we did when we had the conversation between the Skin Horse and the Velveteen Rabbit and talked about what real was, they're genuine people. They're genuine people who care. What you see on the outside is what's on the inside, and they're just as real and congruent as they can possibly be. People who make a difference are also available. They're available emotionally. They're available physically. Every single relationship of significance that we have in our lives needs to have someone who's emotionally available and physically available. And I'm not just talking about being present with us all the time, but the ability and the willingness to set aside time, make time for us when we need them, when we ask for those things. The third hallmark is that people who make a difference practice self-care. They model self-awareness. They know what it means to have, and they understand the importance of having healthy boundaries, and they work to maintain those boundaries because they know that it's important to trust and believe and put the onus on getting through situations back on the person. You do that through self-care. They're not rescuers, they're encouragers. People who make a difference are also empathic. They feel and process with you, not for you. They don't do it for us. They say things like, I have every confidence that you have what it takes inside you to meet the challenges you're facing. They feel with us and they process with us, but not for us. People who make a difference are also honest. They're honest, even when it's uncomfortable. They're honest in their feedback. They're honest in their advice. And they deliver both in honest ways, in honest, non-judgmental ways. Finally, my 6th hallmark is that they're dependable. they're dependable. People who make a difference are dependable. You can always count on them to be people of their word. You can carry their word and their character to the bank because that's just who they are. So here's my challenge. I'd like to ask you to think about tonight those people in your life who through the years are difference makers for you and for others. If they were difference makers for you, they were difference makers for other people. And I ask you to kind of put together your own list of the hallmarks of a difference maker, people who make a difference. See what you come up with. Share them with me. Shoot me a text or a personal message. I'd like to find out if we could create a great list of the hallmarks of people who make a difference. It's Wednesday, middle of the week. I hope you have a great evening. Thank you for stopping by. Take care of yourself. Peace.